Fellow Freedom fans, David Alan Carmichael here with the Faith and Freedom Show, where I'm going to talk about these issues on a constitutional basis, a biblical basis, and the basis of right versus wrong. Can you take it? I try to be flippant sometimes because I think our audience out there just doesn't get it. So I can't be too intense. We'll burn their brain cells out, they'll blow a fuse, and they won't listen. But that may not be true. It very well may be that if the more substance that we get into, the more that you will just not help yourself but to tune in and not change this channel. But I have had people tell me I was talking about some scary things, so I had to change the channel because the things we deal with today have become very ugly. The consequences of our insane, depraved state that we're in. Of course, hey, by the way, did you know there's a pandemic of dementia sweeping North America? So that affects even sometimes our listeners. I'm going to get back to Stan Treleaven. He's my co-host today. He's from the American Foundation. And just before we went to the break, he was telling us the difference of what he saw when he was in England, when things changed after Churchill and went to Attlee, and they nationalized everything on the British planet, and how it had negative effects on the quality of goods, quality of life, and things like that, until 30 years later, somebody came along and made some changes. We're going to find out about that. But before we do, this is the scripture of the day for those who would like to be scholars in the Bible. Proverbs 28:2, because of the transgression of the land, that could include a pandemic of dementia, many are its princes. So we have an increase of bureaucracy directly proportional to our insanity. But by a man of understanding and knowledge, right will be prolonged. Right will be prolonged. Okay, Stan, tell us. You said just before the break that there was somebody that came along after things were going to pot and pushed some buttons that changed some things. Who was it and what changed?
Well, it took 30 years, but this wasn't a man, it was a woman. Margaret Thatcher. The lady with backbone, the lady with will, and fortunately, the lady with opportunity.
Okay.
She did it. She changed Britain so much that the only person they could get in, the socialists could get in after she left, was Tony Blair, who was hardly a socialist in the true sense of the word. And so Margaret Thatcher was a blessing to Britain, and she was a blessing to the United States.
Now, she didn't fix everything, though. One of the things that you and I talked about on the break was the current president of the United States, essentially, he has proclaimed, I've seen the video, he was talking to a bunch of pastors of all things, and explaining that he is a progressive, and as you read what a progressive is, it's somebody who wants to progress to essentially the Marxist state, the Marxist utopia, but do it progressively, not through revolution, not through violence and overthrowing the government, because that would be unlawful, but to do it progressively, politically. So, and when we were on the break, we said, well, we've got to get rid of this guy who's a president. And I said, no, we don't. He's not the problem. Or what he's doing is merely a symptom of our current crisis, our social crisis, our moral crisis, our spiritual crisis in America. So we know that Margaret Thatcher can't fix the world. I mean, there's things I would think that, England right now, they have the same bailout program that we had. They said same cash for clunkers program that we had. So really, what do we really need to fix our crisis in America? This implementation of growing government that is completely depraved.
Well, under the Marxist-Leninism mantle, no country under that mantle has ever been free. Just let me make a comparison here.
Okay.
We've got biblical Christianity on the one side, and we've got Marxism-Leninism on the other side. And then in the sociology, abolition of home, we just talked about that, abolition of the family, of the church, and of the state. Why? Because the family, the church, and the state are in our history have what been maintaining the Christian values of our society, because that's how it came into place in the first place. All of our original founders, and in fact, John Adams' son, John Quincy Adams, when he talked about America at the time, he says everybody was a Christian. Now, obviously, everybody wasn't, but that's how pervasive the Christian religion was at that time. And so the Marxists want the abolition of home, church, and state. And the Christians, biblical Christianity, talks about traditional home and church and state.
I'm going to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
One thing that we've seen on the show now, Stan's kind of running through a chart of things, so to speak, kind of a matrix of ideas, this versus that. What we'll do often on the show is I've had people, one gentleman, Greg Pound, some of your neighbors, he's been in a situation, he was a Christian man with a nice, loving, wonderful family, and one day he had somebody who was a Marxist who was working for the, I don't know what the bureau is called, but basically Child Protective Services, CPS, I guess we would say, wrote up a report that said he was anti-government because he homeschooled his children. Actually, he really had a Christian perspective where he thought he and his wife are best equipped to teach his children. I mean, it's 2 against 1 if you've got one child, or 2 against 4 if you have 4 children, that they were most equipped. And then they wrote him down as being basically, I don't know the term they use, but there was some negative connotation that they had gotten a religious exemption to getting shots, to giving inoculations and things like that for whatever reason. I don't know the details of their particular conviction, but it's totally legal. It totally correctly legal in Florida to do so. But in this report, this lady said that they basically need to have intervention because of their Judeo-Christian lifestyle. And this man's children were taken away. And what kept his children away is he was going to have to sign a form that would have him confess the world's worldview to be qualified as a parent to have his children back, and he couldn't do it. Well, his wife pleaded with him. He said, "You dummy, they're going to steal our children." And that's what's happening. That's what's happening today. There's a worldview war going on, and it's going to affect your life. We can sit and talk about these things in an entertainment fashion. Some folks we've had on the show, we debate things in a nice, calm, cool, collected behavior. But these worldviews and applying these worldviews to the situations of our day are going to affect us and our generations, and it's going to be negatively.